Hey, I'm going to try and make this one short and snappy. And it's about the subject of the welfare bill that the Conservative Party has just put through Parliament. Um, I'm not going to speak in detail here because I'm speaking about this somewhat spontaneously. I felt I had to say something though because it is an important issue. And I've just come across a link on Channel 4 News to PT Patel making she's a cabinet member making the case for this. I admit I didn't watch the video because um, the report paraphrased what she was saying, and frankly, I don't think I can tolerate putting up with these people and what they are doing. She said our bill resonates with everyone who has a sense of fairness about hard work. So what she's doing is that old Tory tactic of trying to divide people based on, the lines of work. I think this is utterly despicable. Um, I mean, the Tories have been doing this from day one, but now that they have a free rein to do it, they're going to be even more nasty and more ruthless. There's a few things I'd like to say. If you're a Tory supporter, which is of course you're right, but if you're a Tory supporter and you think, oh well, what's wrong with this? You know, um, it's all about fairness. It's all about hard work. I would suggest you actually look at the overall picture of where the Tories' monitor of fairness actually lies. Um, there's something like 120 billion in overseas tax avoidance. Okay, and I know there's a lot of political games played with this between Labour and Tories. Both parties have been guilty of not doing enough on that. But compare that with the estimated 1.8 billion in welfare fraud. Now, okay, that's still big money, but it's dwarfed, obviously, by the scale of tax avoidance by big companies. The Tories will not vilify big companies. Okay? Now, if their rationale for that is, well, we need to do business with them, then my message would be, wait a second, unemployed people are British citizens. So why is it perfectly legitimate to demonize British citizens in that way that they constantly do? Um, I just think it's despicable, the sort of divisive um, approach that they're taking, that they've always taken. And it's not surprising. I'm not surprised by it. This is what the Tories do. This is Toryism. They are the nasty party. It's, I mean, they're like, if this was a pantomime, they would be the classic villains. And the thing is, it isn't such a laughing matter when you consider that what they are doing is actually driving people to suicide. I mean, I would honestly, I admit that I've got a very short fuse when it comes to people who make sweeping statements about the unemployed. I know that there's people who abuse the system, but many don't, and many are relying on it because they've got no other choice. And because, we have a welfare system in place in this country as a safety net. Is it abused sometimes? Yes. But does that mean it should be dismantled? No. And that is what these Tories are trying to do. They'll deny that. But if you look at their agenda here, I think give them a free rein. Let's say this was a single party state and it was just the Tories, we'd have no welfare state. They would dismantle it. As for the Labour Party, I think it's a disgrace that the entire party abstained. Harriet Harman is saying they can't possibly oppose everything. I get that. I get that in politics sometimes you have to find common ground, but not on an issue as important as this, and not for the entire party to abstain. So, frankly, the Labour leadership candidates should be ashamed of themselves. People are saying Jeremy Corbyn's the answer, but, as far as I know, he didn't turn up to the vote. The point here is that, although to be fair, I think he does have conviction on the subject. All the others I don't know about. And I've said that I quite like Andy Burnham and so on, but abstaining from something like this is just means it's going to go into David Cameron's hands. Now, Vic Hooper, Andy Burnham, they've been condemning it. They've got lengthy posts as to why they're going to oppose this. But if you abstain from a vote as important as this, that just means you're giving it to the Tories by default. Um, and this is just a ruthless bill. Is going to hit the most those who are struggling the most hardest. The Tories just don't give a damn. So long as it looks like they're being tough on the unemployed, then yeah, that's great. And unfortunately, what this is doing is actually driving those who are poorer in society against each other, because you get a situation now where people who are in work, but they're still having to either claim welfare because the wages aren't enough to get by, or who cannot apply for welfare because they're just on a living wage and they aren't um, they cannot claim that. They then start feeling resentment against the unemployed. So this is a very cynical and, in a political sense, cowardly way of turning people against each other. And I'm starting to see this. I'm starting to see. I mean, one good thing, I suppose, is when I look at these sort of posts to do with welfare, there's a lot more people being critical of the government than there were 5 years ago. 5 years ago, the sentiments were pretty much like, oh yeah, let's kick these lazy unemployed. Now, a lot of people have woken up and realised what these Tories are doing. So only occasionally do you get a very spiteful pro-Tory comment about, oh, what job do you lazy benefits going to do, this sort of thing. Um, Okay, I'm going to leave it up pretty much soon. But, I just think it's despicable. I'll be honest, I try to have as little exposure to this as possible, not because I don't have convictions, but basically I know that it gets me upset. I know that it just gets me worked up. And at the exact moment, there's a limited amount that I can do about it. I can write to MPs, I could sign petitions, I could join protests if any are organised, but in reality, there really isn't a great deal that I can do. I do hope that if I'm in a more prominent position for whatever reason, um, then I'll be in a position to be more outspoken about this. And I swear I will, I'm not saying I'm going to become, sort of hard left, um, going to take the sort of hard left position of Jeremy Corbyn, but I am going to speak out about anything that I disagree with. And this is one such issue that I think is just frankly despicable. And for Preeti Patel and her party to use the sort of language they're doing, like this resonates with fairness, that's a cruel joke. I want her to be directly faced with the question of how she sleeps at night, knowing that her policies are driving people to suicide. She just doesn't give a damn. These Tories don't give a damn. So we are back in the 80s to all extents and purposes. We're back in the 80s, in the sense of I believe society is going to get divided as it was then, and that's a great pity. And one final thing, I don't think it is radical or far left or commie or anything like that, simply to talk about fairness in terms of welfare, in terms of not demonizing people who cannot defend themselves. We have a welfare system in place in this country because we are a developed country and because it was designed as a safety net for those who need it. Now, the people who whinge about welfare, they fail to realize that this system is in place for anybody who needs it. Anybody. So if they fell on hard times, they would then find themselves relying on it. So I think there's a lot of hypocrisy from those who are very smug just because they've been fortunate in life. Maybe they've made good decisions, they happen to be good business people, and they're well off. I'm not jealous of them, okay? Uh, Sometimes they say, oh, this is all about jealousy. If you're wealthy and you've done well, that's great. Good for you. What I don't like is, this is the thing. I'm not anti-wealth, actually, but I am just anti tearing society apart through those sort of methods of workers versus, shirkers. This sort of, it's really, for one thing, it's these sort of sweeping statements, really don't take into account the whole picture. They don't take into account, for example, people who are trying their level best to get by, but they don't have the experience in a certain field. If you think it's very easy to go out and get a job, in certain parts of the country, it really, really isn't. I'm going to leave it there, but I just think it's despicable what these Tories are doing.